Imagining themselves arguing in court for the custody of their own daughter was probably the last thing on Abram and Annie Thigpen's mind when around Christmas in 2023, they announced to their families that Annie was pregnant. 5 weeks after Winona was born, she had gotten sick. Abram and Annie took her to their pediatrician for a checkup. The Gig Harbor couple soon found themselves at Mary Bridge Hospital in Tacoma.
This was last October. Winona was 5 weeks old, and she got sick. She was having trouble with breathing and sleeping, so we decided to take her to a pediatrician since she was so young. When we got there, she also had a bruise on her forehead from bonking heads with her grandma. They told us to go to the Mary Bridge emergency room because they were concerned that she may have a serious illness. When we got there, it turns out that they wanted to do a full child abuse workup, during which they did full body x-rays, and they misdiagnosed a skull fracture. They then reported us to law enforcement and CPS for a skull fracture, and everything went from there.
What they thought would be a regular checkup from a doctor turned into a nightmare. The young couple were engulfed in a system that was unfamiliar to them and other parents in this precarious situation.
From there, we got interrogated by the sheriff department. They came and asked us questions, trying to figure out what had happened. We had explained everything. We have reasonable explanations for every injury that we have explained to not only the detective, but every doctor that had asked us questions since then regarding Winona's injuries. And the detective believed us, understood our stories. It made sense to the detective. And shortly after, we were then investigated by CPS. They came into our room asking the same questions. They wanted, I don't know if they wanted to believe us or if they just didn't want to. But that's when we found out that they were obligated or contractually obligated to investigate us because a certain doctor had claimed that there was to be child abuse and believed there to be child abuse.
Despite their claims of innocence, in January 2024, the Thigpens found themselves in a Pierce County dependency court, battling with the state of Washington's Child Protective Services over whether or not they harmed their 5-week-old daughter.
Well, what happens is that a full child abuse investigation occurs. And the question is why? The answer is simple. Because Dr. Blake ordered imaging of Winona. And based on his opinion, his diagnosis, which Dr. Lamb couldn't say why he diagnosed it as this, said there's a skull fracture. But I opine whether but for that, would we even be here? How many cases have you seen over the years where the parent comes in and provides the evidence that is then used against them to perpetrate a case of abuse? That defies common sense. Why would a parent who hurt their kid come in here and say, here's the evidence to show these injuries? No, they wouldn't. What you have is two reasonable parents concerned for their child. Guilty people don't do that.
Dr. Susan Lamb, a child abuse pediatrician at Mary Bridge Hospital, found the injuries to Winona to be unexplained and, quote, highly suspicious for physical abuse, unquote. Despite Dr. Lamb's professional opinion, the Thigpens, who were not criminally charged, fervently denied they abused their baby.
I think there is reasonable cause to believe Dr. Lamb's testimony could be the explanation in this case. We have, for most of the last, 4 months, had eyes on this child with a health and safety visits through the middle of January. And as Mr. Trump points out, it has been successful in eliminating injuries during that period, but I think it's continuing to be necessary. The reason that is because of quite frankly, I don't think this court can have confidence in the credibility of the reporters in this case. In regards to the parenting class, there were injuries that occurred to prevent further injury, the parenting class is necessary. And I think it's been extensively outlined, the psychological evaluation is necessary under the MASC case to make sure that the department is able to communicate properly with the mothers. For those reasons, the state is asking the court to find reasonable cause to order the services and to find shelter care.
There are multiple hearings in dependency court, and the process can last 18 months or longer. And in certain situations, a child can be removed from their home during this time. However, in Winona's case, a child can be home under certain safeguards and services. If the court finds parents haven't made sufficient progress, parents are at risk of losing their parental rights. In April, the court dismissed the case against the Thigpens. It had been almost 6 months since Abram and Annie brought Winona into a pediatrician for a checkup.
We did private parenting assessments to show that we were not likely to be abusers and that we were good parents. And our results came back great. So our attorney forwarded them to the state and they decided to dismiss the case.
Despite their case being dismissed, the Thigpens are still swirling in the eddy of the system.
Yeah, we're still having to fight. They gave us what's called a founded letter, saying that the allegations of neglect were founded. We were unfounded for abuse, but we're still founded for neglect. So we still have to fight that.
Even though they are currently no longer having to fight in court with the state, the wounds from the Thigpens' experience still fester.
We did nothing wrong to Winona. We had only been taking care of her, and out of caution, we even made the pediatrician appointment that led to all of this. We've been trying to take care of Winona, best interest at heart. And all that happened was then the state just came into our lives. And it was completely it was a waste of resources. It was just, I don't know, it was just horrific. It was horrific. And it was horrible because there's just that threat where one simple mistake and then your kid's gone, just like that.